welcome back to my channel, and today we'll be talking about the movie She's Too Young, and honestly, I'm gonna give my review about it. Number one, I actually like this movie. I think it's one of those movies you can watch over and over again. I feel like that can also be due to the fact of how nostalgic it is. Like, you could literally watch the movie, and the first thing you'll see is, like, the, clothes, the music, the artist. Like, you just look at this movie, like, this movie is like old. This movie is like old as hell. Not old, but early 2000s old. And I just really love that. I don't know what it is about just like looking back at old shows and old movies and just watching it, especially when it comes down to the references of the movies and the situations and stuff. I don't know, I just love looking back at them. Anywho, so basically what happens is She's Too Young is basically about a girl, and she's like experiencing and she's like dating and all that stuff. She's exploring because, she's a teenager. She wants to like learn new things about the dating life and whatever. She's looking at her options. She's exploring her options, and she meets a guy, and they're cool and whatever. And they're like together, whatever. They're exploring, but whatever it is, they're exploring their friendship, their leadership, I guess, whatever. And then after that, he takes like the initiative of like him thinking that she wants to sleep with him for whatever reason, and she's like no, and then he's like okay. I noticed right there was like a manipulation in that scene to me, because he's like making it seem like, oh, if you are nice and you pretend that you don't want to sleep with her, she's gonna feel guilty and do something in return. And that's what he did. And then in return, he like comes back, and then he's like, okay, he's basically like initiating, you don't have to sleep with me, so you still have to give me something. So she ends up like giving him something. I'm not gonna say it out loud, but you know what it is. And then after that, you get to meet like the other characters. I don't remember their names at all, but there were other characters. You get to see their home life. You get to see his home life. You get to see why he is the way that he is. And then after that, we get to learn about like the scenes and all that stuff. And and then she goes to the place, finds that she has syphilis and all that stuff. She's like taking care of it because like early, so they can catch it and all that stuff. And then like gets out and all that stuff. And sorry, and then it gets out that she has syphilis actually, and she has to tell the people, and then they have to tell the people because it's contagious and all that stuff, and it's the right thing to do. And then after that, what happened after that? My brain does not want to think right now. And then after that, the parents find out, and then the mom is actively doing something about it. And then the mom is talking to them, and the perspective of each person is very different, because I feel like a lot of times it's different because of like the economic background and the personality too, because like you have one parent that's from a household that's like very, very rich and all that stuff, and they have like a son or whatever, and the son, in her eyes, her son can like do no wrong and all that stuff. But I feel like if it was a daughter, she would have been like, oh, I don't want you doing this, I don't want you doing that, because like that's like the daughter or whatever. But I feel like because they had a son, it was different, because it was like when she tries to like bring up the girls that he was sleeping with, because again, in this film, the girls are no older than like 14 in the movie, and the girl's like, oh, the girls aren't the only victims, my son was a victim too and all stuff. But it's like, how is your son a victim if he was willingly giving out syphilis to every girl he knew in his grade? Right, left, and center. He is no victim. He's just awful. And even after all this crap happens, he still continuously does this. And I feel like the reason why he does this, I'm not trying to give him any credit or anything, is because of like his parents not being around. So in his ways, he's kind of like, oh, I have money, I have looks, I have this, I have that, so let me just spread my seed and whatever and fly. And that's what he did continuously throughout the movie. Oh Lord, his character is a combination of nice guys, quote unquote nice, whatever. And then after that, we get like the other character storyline of like why she's the way she is because her mother is like never around and her mother doesn't really care and her mother's like the best friend, and then the dad is like, I guess they're divorced. I don't know what happened. They mentioned something about a divorce or whatever. And then after that, something happens. She finds out her daughter has syphilis, and she basically is now trying to like actively fix their relationship because they're just saying like, oh, she's like, but I'm your best friend, da 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 da, and it's like, I agree with her. She does not need to be her best friend. She needs to be a mother, okay? Because it's cool that you want your daughter to tell you everything, and that would be lovely, but at the same time, you have to be a mother. You have to be there for your child. You have to parent them. You can't just be out here slinging and swinging. And even in the movie, when she does start to get better, she slips down a little bit. But you can see that she's actively trying. When I was watching this kind of reminds me of the show Euphoria in a way, of like Cassie, her issues, her mother, and Alexi, and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my god, Cassie who? It just reminded me of that so much. And then after that, they basically found that everybody's been sleeping with everybody in our school. Nasty. And all that happens, and then they have like their scenes of where they're literally having like their escapades, and people are sleeping around, and people are having group relations in rooms and all that stuff, which is nasty, but you do you. And then they have like the whole like slut shaming thing, and it's like that's one thing I want to talk about in the whole pick-meism, because there's like this one scene where there's a dude talking, and then he's like, how come me and my friend, I don't, how about, because like, how come me as guys, we don't pick each other out, but girls, we literally pick each other out for anything. And it's like, that's true, especially when it comes to situations where like girls like, oh, if I tear down this girl, then I can get this guy. And it's like, that's not cute and that's not attractive. And then the whole slut shaming thing where like, oh, guys can sleep with 1,000 men, but women can't sleep with multiple partners. Personally, I think you should swallow their own. I say sleep with whoever you want to do, doesn't matter if you're a guy or female, but be careful and don't spread it. And it's like, if you're going to slut shame her, you should slut shame him, because 9 times out of 10, they're not sleeping by themselves. They're sleeping with each other. So, and she's just not the only partner too. So it's kind of like, you want to slut shame her, slut shame him. That's how I take it. Not one person is going to be a slut shame. Both of you are getting slut shamed. That's just how I feel. And then after that, they also do talk about like in the series of like, not series but show. It would be interesting if it was a series though, but I feel like it would get canceled. I don't know why. And then after that in the show, there's like the mother, and the mother is kind of like talking to like the other mother, and is like, oh, it could be the culture that's making them act out this way, the music, the shows, and all that stuff. Because there's like a scene where there's like a computer, and then it's like some lady, and she's like doing some type of explicit work, and it's like pictures of it, and it's like that could be a contribution of that, because it's like, oh, in order for me to join the culture or fit in, I have to act a certain way or look a certain way. If I don't, I'm not going to be viewed as appealing. Sorry, my throat. Another way, so that could also be a contribution. And then she's like, how come you won't talk about that in the interview? Why don't you just add that? And then she's like, no, my Christian values. Yes, and then another thing is also pointed out in the movie is religion, which no one ever talks about. I have no problem with religion, but when your religion is you want to practice abstinence and all that stuff, you should sort your own, practice your abstinence. But just know, you're hindering your children, because I feel like it's better that you have your child know how to use certain contraceptives and what to do if certain things happen, than for your child to go out there while they're trying to explore options or learn from their peers or learn from online, because they're not getting the right information that they need, and something happens to their child, and that contribution can happen to other people too, or your child may get pregnant or whatever. It's better for them to know than not to know, and it goes for both boys and girls, because number one, it's nasty, things can happen, and number three, nothing is always curable, because there was a scene where the mom was talking about it, And she was like, oh, even though my son has something, because at this point he had syphilis, and he was like, and then she was like, oh, it's curable anyways. But it's like, there's another scene where there's talks about it. It's like, yes, it's only clear. And then on top of there's another scene where there's like the little sister, and she's like trying on the same clothes as her older sisters. And I feel like that's such beautiful symbolism. I'm not saying what happened is beautiful, because I don't think any child, especially someone that young, is a good thing. But the symbolism of her sister doing it because her other sister did it because she wants to be just like her is just quite like captivating to me, at least. And another thing I would have liked to see in this movie is for the fact of like, um, sorry. Another thing I would like to see in this movie is for the fact of them actually talking about the problem in the movie, and then actually trying to help a situation with the students. Whereas like I feel like they did that, but they could have like extended more of it in like in the scene where they're talking, where the mother is talking about it, but they're bickering and fighting, didn't really help it. And she did talk about it, but they should have extended it more of like culture, religion, all the stuff that contributes, and all the stuff that we could stop, and safe sex and all that stuff. So that would have been interesting to see, but they did not, which sucked. And then another thing I like to see would have like was not Steve, but what was interesting in the show was the fact of how like there was one character who was continuously fooling around and had many partners and all stuff, and was having orgies and all stuff. Which, like, I understand why she did it, but I feel like if you had syphilis and you knew you were gonna go through all these things with the syphilis and you caught it and everything, why did you continuously continue to do this? Because it's like, I feel like her character failed to realize that a lot of more the worst things could have happened besides getting syphilis. Like, you could have gotten HIV, you could have gotten chlamydia, you could have gotten all these things, and her character just continuously does. Even after another character who literally went through the same thing stopped. And I know other people deal with the situations differently, but she should have just been smarter about it. And yeah, I understand she did this because she wanted to not rebel, but she just felt like constricted by her parents because of the religion, and she wanted to live her life, and she was a teenager and all that. So I get why she did that, but it's not smart. But to me, I felt like that wasn't a very smart idea, because you have to be very careful on who you choose to spend your energy with, your time with, and especially who you choose to be with in that way. You know, you can't just be doing that stuff, you know? And then another thing about the movie was like there was a scene where they were talking about like the guys would like split, you know, how Nick would like switch partners and all stuff, and it was like, oh, it's because the guys like spread their seed and da da da. But it's like, why though? Why do that? Because you can catch anything, you can harm people in different forms, and it's like, it's just, I understand if it's like a thing where like, okay, I understand y'all want to have your fast serious life, but it's just not a smart idea to do, because you can get hurt, anybody can get hurt, and it's just not a smart thing. But just imagine if it was the other way around, you know? Y'all would have lost your shit. I'm just saying it's just not a smart idea. And I didn't really have a problem with the joke or whatever, but I just felt like the joke was not a smart thing to say. And I know it was a joke, but it was just not a smart thing to say. And plus, it was 2003, so whatever. How did I feel about that? I just felt like, I mean, but now looking back at it, I understand why they had it. I just felt like it wasn't a smart thing to say, because nobody should do that, boy or girl, and you can get hurt too, like that. And I just felt that that's not a smart thing for you to do, boy or girl, and I didn't like that how like they portrayed that to be the right thing. I personally think nobody should be out here doing that, but if they want to do that for themselves, or they want to make jokes about it, whatever, that's their business, because in the end, something happens, that's on them. Like I said, boy or girl, something happens, that's on them, because they could have chose to do anything else. They could chose to have same sex, be absent, whatever. But that's on them. Don't openly open doors for something to happen to you. And I'm not saying this in a victim blame. I'm saying this in a way of you have to be careful with who you, like I said, spend your time with, spend your energy with, be intimate with. Just those things you need to look out for. And then after that is the assault scene, which I didn't like. I wouldn't say it was a full-on assault scene, but I was just saying, like, she's just coming in because she's looking for her friend, and then this dude's just, like, bigger there and everything, just comes out and just, like, assaults her because she literally said no and all that stuff. And she just didn't want to be with him, and also because, A, he's an asshole. Second of all, he slut shames her. And third of all, he literally forces himself on her and stuff like that. But luckily, at least somebody was there to stop it, so that was nice. I feel like they could have been a little bit more physical in this scene, but they did not. They did this whole thing of like where he would take a picture and they would like fake that they were calling the police, and he believed it. And then after that, they get home, well, not they get home, but she's just slipping it off, and I was like, hey, it's garage or whatever. And then the parents come, and then they have like another symbolism moment of where like she's hugging like her mother, and then there's a picture of her when she was like younger, which I thought was really cute. Another thing I wanted to talk about in this movie is the relationship between the boy and the girl, and how they had like classes in a way. Like they had geeks and they had pop people, and then there was him and her. Personally, if it was me, I would have chose him in a heartbeat because he is sweet, he is kind, he is loving. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, I had like this type of like guys that I liked, and they were like athletic and all that stuff. And after I got older and like more in my late teens, I kind of realized that I have a thing for geeks. Like, I absolutely love smart men. I don't know what it is, but their intelligence is so captivating that I'm just attracted to them. I don't know what it is. I just love smart men. Like, the most attractive thing a man can be to me is smart. Especially when I don't have to repeat myself. Like, I don't like repeating myself, but my God, I just love smart men. That's just my type. I would have, definitely. Yeah. I would have been with him day one. Like, yeah. However, I won't lie, I do have someone that I am dating and that I am in a relationship, so, but I'm just saying, that's just my type, and yeah, but I am dating someone, I am seeing someone, I am in a relationship with them, that I am happy, but I'm just saying, if I was in her shoes, I would have chose him in a heartbeat, because he's everything that I could ever dream of in a boyfriend. Like, if her and I were to switch bodies or whatever, and I was her character and I was on that show or whatever, movie, I meant to say, I would choose him day one, because he's everything. And on top of that, he actually wants to be with her. It's not a situation where like she has to do this or she has to do that. It's like a want.